This is InfluenceNow, where we focus on ideas influencing the world. Hi everyone, my name is Justin Kraft, host of InfluenceNow podcast, and I'm here today with Steve Bucuvalas. He's the CEO, founder, safe to say, inventor of Phase Change and the Mia Cognitive Agent. And really excited to have you here today. It's a great opportunity to dig into what I feel like is a really core problem related to software development.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. And actually, if you can go ahead and give the audience a little bit of an introduction of yourself, that'd be helpful.
Well, I've been in technology for many decades, more than I'd like to admit to. And, it mainly was in financial services and insurance. I ran advanced technology groups and applied AI groups over my career, and eventually became an entrepreneur and started and sold a couple of companies, of which Phase Change is the third. And after I sold my previous company, the buyer said to me, "What's wrong with you guys in software? AI has changed financial services extraordinarily, increased our productivity 100 times, which is accurate." And he said to me, "Why can't you do that with your own industry?" So after the sale, I said to myself, that's a really great question. I mean, why can't we apply AI? What are the barriers to AI solving the software development problem, which is significant? While financial services has gone up hundreds of times in productivity, software has only gone up in the same period of time only about 3 times.
Yeah, the productivity question. We'll get into that here. I think that's a huge component of this. So tell us a little bit. You kind of explained a little bit of what the problem is already, but what is phase change for those that don't know?
Yeah. The essence of phase change is to change the essence of software. It sounds like a pun, but when we look at software, it's extremely manual, software development. And when we look at other industries, we see them entirely automated, robotics, digital technologies and such. And so the question is, what's wrong with software development? And what we've done is figured out a way to change the essence of software development such that it can be digitized and brought into AI such that it's on a productivity curve more like Moore's Law, that it can just increasingly, much more rapidly every year get more and more productive.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Having determined now what phase change is for the audience and classifying it for the audience a little bit, you got into a little bit at the beginning about the story of what this is and some of the issues that exist and why AI hasn't necessarily been applied to software, which is really weird to me that it isn't an actual software development. Maybe give us a little background. Give us a little bit of the story of phase change and how it came to be and where we are, maybe a little bit of the roadmap of how it has gotten to where it is now, which I guess the audience should also know this. Phase change is very close to being, I guess, publicly available, probably in the next few months here. And it's been a long road to get to this point. So I think the audience would be interested in hearing what the story is and maybe that roadmap of how it got to the point it is now.
Well, the story and the road has been tortuously twisted because it actually seemed like a simple problem when I started, but it turned out to be a lot of steps of innovation in it. It wasn't a single innovation. The core of it, though, which took many years to develop, is to be able to represent mathematically in terms of formal systems what people do when they're developing software. I call it human-centric. So we describe the problem in 2 human-centric ways. One is AI has suffered over the years in trying to build automatons, agents, whatever, for the real world. And it's hard for an agent to learn about the real world. We, as human beings, in our first 3, 4, 5 years, we're programmed by evolution to be able to suck all that knowledge in and how to behave in the world. 200 million years of evolution has made us this way. We're only beginning to figure out how to make an automaton, an agent, be able to learn that way. And we haven't nearly caught up to the human ability to learn about the world and behave in the world. Software, however, is a more symbolic world. Software, if you define it that way, is a much simpler world to create an agent in. But no one has been able to figure out how to do it. And what we did is human-centric. We broke it into 2 pieces. The creative piece that humans do, figure out what do I want to build? How am I going to use it? That's very creative. That's a physical world, real world thing. Then how to implement it is that symbolic world, and that's what we made the AI for. Mm-hmm. And that collaboration between those 2 is how we got it digitized and into a cognitive platform.
So it's truly a blend of how a human thinks and interacts with a technology in combination with the technology, then learning what that person is inputting into it, and also learning from what maybe the code structure already looks like.
That's exactly right.
And pulling that all together into one cohesive solution.
So you can't ask me anything about making appointments or how to drive a car or anything like that. But if you want to find the piece of code that caused a bug, she's really good at it. She's much better than a human being. So humans are the ones that drive it. They're the creative ones. And me as the amplifier and using machine speed and machine learning to make it happen.
Yeah, perfect way to explain it. Diving into maybe, in my research, I see a lot of applications of this and ways that this can be utilized. And I'm excited that there's something out there that so many people in my network are coders and developers and software creators of things like that. And to have something that actually helps them would just epically huge for them. Mm-hmm. What are the biggest challenges in the market, or not from the standpoint of selling it to the market, but the challenges that these developers are having, and these coders and these CIOs, and what are these problems that it's looking to solve? I mean, it's addressed on your website that COBOL is one of the main legacy systems that this is aiming to solve. But why is there a gap there? And what is that gap? Is it that the workforce is leaving? Is it that the workforce is retiring? Is it that they just can't find new talent? Is it the actual ability of it to find code? What are all the problems that this is really looking to solve?
Well, one of the human problem that I have in talking to people about this is people developers think they think in programming languages. So there's all these debates about programming languages. And actually, people don't think about software in a programming language. They build a conceptual understanding of how the computation works, and that's abstracted from the actual programming language. And what we do is build an abstract representation that's analogous to that. So one of the things that is hard for people to realize is that, we can work on any programming language. And that boggles their mind. So COBOL is this old 40, 50-year-old language that has atrocious legacy problems because the code has been around. It runs 85% of the financial transactions in the world. And it's 220 billion lines of code. And the programmers are all in their 60s. They all want to retire. They keep getting incentives, work a few more years. Nobody wants to learn COBOL. In fact, kids that go to see Boulder, I've never even, for computer science, I've never even heard of it. Nobody wants to work it. But the problem with legacy, every developer who's listening to this, everyone that's familiar with software, knows that developers want to build new things. We like to build new systems. As soon as you finish the first version of a system, it becomes legacy. It doesn't matter if it's Haskell, C, COBOL, Java. as soon as you finish the first version, it becomes legacy. And every employer of or project manager or CEO of software can face the same problem. The knowledge is in those individuals. The market is hot. They could get hired away. They could retire. They could say, I'm sick of software. And then I'm stuck. The knowledge walks out the door. What Mia does, the agent does, the cognitive agent does, is we compile the software, the language, into a knowledge representation that allows her to reason the way software people do. So it becomes an asset of the corporation. It becomes something that can never walk out the door. But it's universal. We're starting, as you say, with COBOL because it's such a huge problem. But it works with any language because it represents conceptually how software works, not as a programming language.
Now, have you guys done any research on actually how much this will improve productivity and efficiency, and also maybe an analysis of how much it'll affect that cost number of people? Because I'm assuming you have to pay a lot for these COBOL people to stay on. And that's a huge cost to these massively huge organizations and companies running financial data and financial systems. I don't know. Do you have an estimate of what the cost savings might be?
Yeah. Well, we've done it empirically. I mean, we have some academics and staff, some PhDs that were doing some more formal scientific studies. But, it's striking. What we quote in our literature on our website is actually a very low estimate. We say 4 to 8 times improvement, not percent times. So 400 to 800 times. And that's for our entry-level product, which is simply a cognitive agent that understands software and helps humans understand software. Because the literature says that 70% of commercial software development in the legacy, the maintenance stage, is figuring out what the guy down 2 cubicles down actually was doing when he or she wrote their code.
Mm-hmm.
And that's well established. Our internal studies is actually, when we've actually tested people, it's actually 100 to 150 times improvement in tasks. So it's a stunning improvement, and that's why we compare it to Moore's Law. It's a new curve for software productivity.
Yeah, that makes sense that the tagline on the COBOL portion of the website then is COBOL will never be the same, and it's actually legacy software will probably never be the same because productivity-wise, this will allow software developers, CIOs to be more creative and proactive in what they're doing and creating rather than spending all their time trying to find bugs in code or trying to learn whatever this other coder wrote over here, when it can just be interactive very quickly. I can see so many different ways this can be used, which leads me actually to another question. Knowing that there's an actual product launch coming, targeted and end of summer, I'm guessing somewhere around there, from what I've read. What is it that, or has Mia already, the cognitive agent piece of this, has this already been put in play on any test clients, or is it actively being used? Where are we at in the beta testing cycle? Is this really close, to being used?
We are finishing our alpha product development for COBOL in financial services with partners. Beta program will start mid-year. We're projecting July. And GA will be next year.
Okay.
So, from our point of view, we're in more than 10 years into R&D on this. We've built a lot of research platforms to show that it works. But this is the first product launch we're very excited about. Very excited about.
Yeah. For 10 years worth of work, I can't imagine what that party is going to look like when you finally get there. So,
people, this is not an academic project. Obviously we use science, but seeing people in real companies actually using it is just so exciting to us, because that's really where the rubber meets the road.
And we've established one target market that this will be utilized in probably, and that's COBOL and then also financial systems. Is there any other companies, partnerships, other ways that this product is going to maybe fit into other things, or maybe like an Accenture or somebody like that would potentially be able to utilize this, like some kind of third party, and plug it into their tool sets and what they're doing for clients?
That's actually a great question. So because I'm an old guy, I call that distribution. Channel approach is what we're taking up. We have a little bit direct relationships in our alpha and beta program, but really we want to be more like an Intel Inside. And so we're already talking to, I can't talk about the names of the companies, but we're already talking to companies about embedding and rebranding MIA into automation suites that exist in companies like the one you mentioned and others as well.
Okay, I mean, fantastic. When I was asking that question, it was coming, or when I was thinking about all the use cases, it was coming to me, and that being a really good vertical for you guys. So it's great to hear that you guys are thinking about that. So I always like to ask, just the difficulties, because we have an audience too that's entrepreneurs and also business focused side. And one of the questions I usually like to ask a lot of the guests we have is, if you can elaborate on, you've been at this for 10 years, I imagine there's been quite a few difficulties. Maybe elaborate on some of the difficulties or maybe ways that advice maybe you can give to others that are in the startup world. Because this product, being 10 years in, has taken a massive amount of commitment on your part. And just changing gears a little bit into just some advice for the audience. What is it that you have learned from this experience that maybe you can pass on to others, that whether they're building software programs or a product, or it could be anything in the business side of things, that you have learned doing this that you can maybe pass along to the audience?
Yeah, because we build cognitive systems, I tend to think of these things formally. And one of the things is that I've come to realize that we all, people, are living in bubbles. And people talk about it in politics now a lot. I'm not going to politics. I'm just talking about belief systems in science and in industry. We see it as fads all the time. When you come with an idea that is so much outside of people's bubbles, and the truth of it, even when you demonstrate it to them, they don't believe it. They claim it's a fraud. Mm-hmm. And so my advice to entrepreneurs is, if you want to do something extraordinarily significant, be prepared for serious pushback. Be prepared for talking to people like Justin and asking advice. How do I explain this in a way that people will actually believe me? I've become much more of a, how do I explain things to these different communities, the science community, the engineering community, the customer community, the IT managers, the CIOs. Every single community needs to hear it in a different way. It's been incredibly hard. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest challenge.
The messaging.
Yeah,
the message, the voice. We discover that a lot with many startups that my agency that I actually own outside of this works with, and additionally just those we talk to on InfluenceNow. So great piece of advice. I want to give you the opportunity to plug Phase Change really quick as well. So where can people, one, get more information, and then two, interact or engage with you to maybe even get in your pipeline for learning more about this, getting a demo? How do you want people to contact you?
Okay, well, contact through the website is probably the best way. Reference this podcast and say that you want to talk to me directly, and myself or my COO will get back to you. What we're really looking for in terms of relationships is those channel partnerships. It doesn't matter what language, if you're interested in Java or if you're interested in Haskell's at the other end. I mean, we're interested in expanding this as quickly as possible, and we're looking for partners in that space. If you have special purpose applications that are particularly hurting, we'd like to talk to you as well. So please feel free to reach out and talk to us. We're a we're a typical organization where email and messaging is the best way to contact us. But we're very responsive and we love talking to people. Thanks for that.
Yeah, fantastic. And I will go ahead and post all of the necessary information on the podcast pages and across those. But just so everyone knows, it is Phase Change, PhaseChange.ai is the main site. There's actually a COBOL.phasechange.ai as well if you want to read more about the COBOL specifically piece of this. I believe there's also a video on the website currently that helps explain this a little more from a metacognitive standpoint. Yeah. And I would like for anybody to please do share this, tell your friends about it, especially if you're in the developer coding space. This is really something that's absolutely game-changing that people just can't believe is here. So you will hear a lot more about this in the future, and I want to thank you so much.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah. It's been InfluenceNow podcast, and again, I'm Justin Kraft, your host, and with Steve Bucuvalas. We'll see you next time.